Welcome, everyone, to a new moment of reflection on the sacred Chronicle. Have you ever felt like life has left you stranded in a desert with no clear path forward? We all face moments when our strength seems to falter, when the weight of our challenges feels too heavy to carry. In those times, we search for something, anything, to hold on to. The good news is that Jesus Christ, through his life and teachings, has already shown us the way. He didn't just talk about resilience. He lived it, giving us a roadmap to endure and thrive no matter what comes our way. Today, we're diving into 6 powerful lessons from his life that reveal the true source of strength. The first of these is a secret that can transform how we face our hardest days: complete trust in God. His story is about to surprise you. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll ask God to bring all the good things into your life. Imagine a vast, sun-scorched wilderness where the horizon shimmers with heat and the ground is cracked and dry, offering no comfort. The air is heavy, carrying the faint, dusty scent of parched earth. This is where we find Jesus, alone, his sandals worn thin from days of wandering. For 40 days and 40 nights, he has been in this desolate place, with no food, no shelter, only the relentless sun above and the barren land below. His body is weak, his stomach hollow with hunger, yet his spirit remains unbroken. This is the wilderness of Judea, a place where survival seems impossible, where every step tests the limits of human endurance. It's here, in this moment of vulnerability, that Jesus reveals the first secret to thriving through life's trials: complete trust in God. The story begins after Jesus' baptism, when the Spirit leads him into this unforgiving desert. The Mediterranean breeze, once filled with the scent of spices and sea salt from his home in Galilee, is now a distant memory. Here, there's only the harsh reality of solitude and hunger. The devil sees his chance, approaching Jesus when he's at his weakest. "If you are the Son of God," the tempter sneers, his voice like a dry wind, "turn these stones into bread." The stones, smooth and sun-warmed, lie scattered at Jesus' feet, almost mocking his hunger. It's a temptation that cuts deep. After 40 days without food, the thought of bread must have been overwhelming. His body craves sustenance, his human nature urging him to act, to use his divine power to ease his suffering. Yet Jesus doesn't waver. His response is steady, resolute. "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." This moment is more than a rejection of temptation. It's a profound lesson in trust. Jesus is showing us that true strength doesn't come from satisfying our immediate needs or chasing what the world offers. It comes from relying on God's word, trusting that his provision is enough, even when our circumstances scream otherwise. The wilderness, with its barrenness and isolation, is a mirror of our own lives, those moments when we feel depleted, when solutions seem out of reach. Maybe it's a financial struggle, a broken relationship, or a dream that slipped through your fingers. In those times, the temptation is to take control, to find a quick fix, to turn stones into bread by our own efforts. But Jesus teaches us to pause, to look beyond the immediate, and to trust in God's greater plan. Picture him standing there, his robes dusted with sand, his face weathered but calm. The devil doesn't stop at one temptation. He tries again, taking Jesus to the highest point of the temple in Jerusalem. The city sprawls below, its white stone walls gleaming under the sun. "Throw yourself down," the devil taunts, quoting scripture to twist the truth. "For it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up." The challenge is clear. Prove God's protection by forcing his hand. But Jesus sees through the deception. "Do not put the Lord your God to the test," he replies, his voice firm, unshaken. This second temptation is about doubting God's care, about demanding proof of his presence. Yet Jesus trusts God's promises without needing to test them. He knows that true faith doesn't demand signs. It rests in the certainty of God's word. The third temptation is the boldest. The devil leads Jesus to a high mountain, showing him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time, their wealth, their power, their glory. "All this I will give you," he whispers, "if you will bow down and worship me." The offer is staggering. An easy path to dominion, bypassing the pain and sacrifice of the cross. But Jesus' response is immediate, unwavering. "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." In this final stand, Jesus shows that trusting God means rejecting shortcuts, even when they promise comfort or success. The kingdoms of the world are nothing compared to the eternal plan of God, and Jesus chooses to trust that plan completely. As the devil retreats, defeated, angels come to minister to Jesus, bringing relief to his weary body. The wilderness, once a place of trial, becomes a place of divine encounter. Jesus emerges stronger, not because he satisfied his hunger or proved his power, but because he leaned entirely on God. This is the heart of the first secret. Complete trust in God is a foundation of resilience. When we trust him, we find strength that outlasts our circumstances, hope that defies our struggles, and peace that anchors our souls. Think of your own wilderness moments. Maybe you're in one right now, facing a challenge that feels insurmountable. The world might tempt you to rely on your own strength, to doubt God's care, or to chase fleeting solutions. But Jesus' example calls us to something higher. Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6 echoes his lesson. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. This isn't blind faith. It's a deliberate choice to believe that God's word is more reliable than our feelings, our fears, or our circumstances. Jesus' time in the wilderness wasn't just a test. It was a demonstration. He showed us that trusting God isn't passive. It's active, intentional, and powerful. When we face our own deserts, we can remember his example. The same God who sustained Jesus through 40 days of hunger is with us in our trials. He sees our needs, knows our struggles, and promises to provide. Trusting him doesn't mean our problems disappear, but it means we don't face them alone. It means we have a source of strength that never runs dry, a foundation that never crumbles. As Jesus left the wilderness, he carried this truth with him into every step of his ministry. His trust in God shaped his life, from the miracles he performed to the cross he endured. For us, the secret is a lifeline. When life feels like a desert, when the stones around us tempt us to take control, we can choose to trust God instead. We can hold fast to his word, rest in his promises, and walk forward with confidence that he is in control. This is the first key to enduring and thriving, a trust so complete that it carries us through any storm, any desert, any trial. Jesus proved it, and he invites us to live it. The sun sets over the Judean wilderness, casting long shadows across the barren land. Jesus stands tall, his heart anchored in God's truth, his spirit unshaken. The trial is over, but the lesson remains, etched into the story of his life for all of us to follow. The moon hangs low over the Mount of Olives, its pale light filtering through the gnarled branches of ancient olive trees. The air is cool, carrying a faint scent of earth and leaves, a stark contrast to the warmth of the upper room, where Jesus and his disciples shared their Last Supper just hours ago. Now, in the quiet of the Garden of Gethsemane, the world feels heavy, the silence broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. Jesus walks ahead, his steps deliberate but burdened, his heart carrying the weight of what lies before him. The disciples follow, their eyes heavy with exhaustion, unaware of the storm that's about to break. This is a place of solitude, a sanctuary of prayer, but tonight it will become a battlefield of the soul. Here, in this sacred grove, Jesus reveals the second secret to enduring and thriving, the power of persistent prayer. The night is late, and the disciples are weary. Jesus, knowing the cross awaits him, feels the crushing weight of his mission. His heart is troubled, his human nature wrestling with the agony of what's to come. He turns to his closest friends, Peter, James, and John, and asks them to keep watch with him. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he tells them, his voice soft but raw with emotion. "Stay here and keep watch." He moves a little farther, finding a quiet spot among the olive trees, where he falls to his knees. The ground is cool beneath him, the earth damp from the evening dew. In this moment of vulnerability, Jesus does what he has always done in times of trial. He prays. Picture him there, his face lifted toward the heavens, his hands clasped tightly, his voice trembling as he pours out his heart to God. "Father," he prays, "if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." The words are honest, raw, revealing the depth of his human struggle. The cup he speaks of is no ordinary burden. It's the weight of humanity's sin, the pain of betrayal, the torment of the cross. Every fiber is being longed for another way, a path that spares him the suffering ahead. Yet even in this plea, Jesus anchors himself in trust. Yet not as I will, but as you will, he adds, surrendering his desires to God's perfect plan. This is no fleeting prayer, no quick request. Jesus persists, returning to this prayer not once, not twice, but 3 times, each time with greater intensity, each time aligning his will more fully with God's. The garden is still, but the air feels charged with the weight of his prayer. His disciples, meant to keep watch, have succumbed to sleep, their soft snores a quiet betrayal of their master's need. Jesus returns to them, his heart heavy but his resolve unbroken. Couldn't you keep watch for 1 hour? He asks, his voice gentle but tinged with disappointment. Watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He returns to his place of prayer, his sweat falling like drops of blood, a sign of the anguish coursing through him. The medical term for this is hematidrosis, a rare condition where extreme stress causes blood vessels to burst, mingling sweat with blood. This vivid image paints the intensity of Jesus' struggle, yet it also underscores his persistence. He doesn't give up. He prays again and again, each time surrendering more deeply to God's will. This moment in Gethsemane is a masterclass in persistent prayer. Jesus shows us that prayer isn't just a ritual. It's a lifeline, a conversation that sustains us through our darkest hours. His persistence isn't about changing God's mind, but about aligning his own heart with God's purpose. In the face of unimaginable suffering, Jesus chooses to pray, to keep seeking, to keep trusting. This is the secret. Persistent prayer gives us the strength to face what lies ahead, not by removing the trial, but by transforming us within it. When we pray without ceasing, as Jesus did, we find a peace that anchors us, a strength that carries us, and a clarity that guides us. Think of your own Gethsemane moments, those times when life feels overwhelming, when the path ahead seems too painful to walk. Maybe it's a diagnosis that shakes you, a loss that leaves you reeling, or a decision that keeps you awake at night. In those moments, the temptation is to turn away, to let despair or distraction take over. But Jesus' example calls us to pray, to keep praying, even when the answer isn't immediate, even when the burden remains. His prayer in the garden wasn't answered with the removal of the cross, but it was answered with the strength to endure it. God sent an angel to strengthen him, a reminder that our prayers are never unheard, even when the outcome isn't what we expect. The olive trees stand as silent witnesses to Jesus' struggle, their twisted branches a testament to resilience through time. The garden, though a place of sorrow, becomes a place of victory, not because the trial is avoided, but because Jesus chooses to face it through prayer. His persistence teaches us that prayer is not a one-time act, but a continual turning to God, a choice to seek him in every moment of need. The Apostle Paul later echoes this truth in 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 17, urging us to pray without ceasing. This doesn't mean we're always on our knees, but that our hearts remain open to God, ready to lean on him no matter the circumstance. Jesus' prayer in Gethsemane also shows the power of surrender within persistence. Each time he prays, "Not my will, but yours be done," he's not giving up, he's giving over. He's choosing to trust that God's plan, though painful, is perfect. This is a lesson for us all. When we pray persistently, we're not just asking for what we want. We're inviting God to shape our desires, to align our hearts with his. This alignment brings a strength that nothing else can, a strength that doesn't depend on our circumstances, but on our connection to the one who holds all things together. As Jesus rises from his final prayer, his face is calm, his spirit resolved. The disciples are still sleeping, unaware of the soldiers approaching, their torches flickering in the distance. The hour of betrayal is near, but Jesus is ready. Not because the pain is gone, but because his persistent prayer has anchored him in God's will. He wakes his disciples, his voice steady. "Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." In this moment, we see the fruit of his prayer. A courage that faces a cross, a peace that transcends fear, a strength that comes from God alone. For us, the lesson of Gethsemane is clear. Persistent prayer is our lifeline in the storms of life. It's the act of turning to God again and again, trusting that he hears us, that he strengthens us, that he guides us. When we feel overwhelmed, when the weight of our trials threatens to crush us, Jesus invites us to pray as he did, to pour out our hearts, to surrender our will, and keep seeking God's face. This persistence doesn't guarantee an easy path, but it promises a strength that endures, a hope that sustains, and a God who never leaves us. The moonlight bathes the Garden of Gethsemane in a soft glow, the olive trees standing as quiet sentinels. Jesus stands ready, his heart aligned with God's purpose, his spirit fortified by prayer. The night is dark, but his resolve is unshaken, a testament to the power of persistent prayer. The air in Jerusalem is warm and heavy, thick with the scent of dust and the faint aroma of bread from nearby homes. The streets outside are alive with the hum of Passover preparations, but inside this upper room, a quiet intimacy settles over the small gathering. The flicker of oil lamps casts soft shadows on the walls, their golden light dancing across the faces of Jesus and his disciples. They've just shared a meal, the table still scattered with crumbs and empty cups, the echoes of their laughter lingering. But now, as the meal draws to a close, a hush falls over the room. Jesus rises, his movements deliberate, his eyes carrying a depth that speaks of something profound about to unfold. He removes his outer garment, wraps a towel around his waist, and picks up a basin of water. The disciples watch confused as their master, their Lord, prepares to do the unthinkable. Here, in this humble act, Jesus reveals a third secret to enduring and thriving: love through service. The room is simple, its stone floor cool beneath their feet, worn smooth by years of gatherings. The disciples recline on cushions, their sandals caked with the dust of Jerusalem's roads, evidence of their long walks through crowded streets. In this culture, washing feet is a task reserved for the lowest servant, a job so menial it's almost beneath mention. Yet Jesus, the one they call teacher and Lord, kneels before them, the basin of water sloshing softly as he sets it down. The sound of water pouring from a jug fills the silence, a gentle trickle that seems to carry the weight of eternity. He begins with one disciple, his hand steady, callous from years of carpentry, now gently lifting a dusty foot into the water. The room is so quiet you can hear the soft splash, the faint drip as he washes and dries each foot with care. Picture him there, kneeling on the stone floor, his robe brushing against the ground, his hands moving with purpose. The disciples are stunned, their faces a mix of confusion and discomfort. This is not how a master behaves. This is not the image of strength they expected from the one they believe will lead them to glory. Peter, ever impulsive, speaks up first, his voice sharp with protest. "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" he asks, his tone a mix of disbelief and embarrassment. Jesus looks up, his eyes kind but unwavering. "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter shakes his head, stubborn as always. "No, you shall never wash my feet." The words hang in the air, a challenge born of loyalty but also misunderstanding. Jesus' response is gentle yet firm. "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." This exchange is more than a moment of tension. It's a revelation. Jesus is teaching them, and us, that true strength lies not in power or position, but in serving others with love. Peter, still grappling with the moment, relents, his voice softening as he says, "Then, Lord, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." The other disciples watch in silence, their hearts stirred by the sight of their master humbling himself. Jesus moves from one to next, the water growing murky with the dust of their journeys, yet his hands never falter. Each touch is deliberate, a silent sermon on what it means to lead, to love, to live as God intends. The act of washing feet is more than a gesture. It's a radical redefinition of greatness. In a world where status is measured by wealth, authority, or conquest, Jesus turns a hierarchy upside down. He, the Son of God, chooses a role of the servant, showing that love expressed through service is the truest form of strength. The water ripples in the basin, reflecting the lamplight, a quiet symbol of the cleansing power of humility. Jesus' actions speak louder than any words could. To serve others is to reflect God's heart, to find purpose in the act of giving without expecting return. As he finishes, Jesus dries his hands and returns to his place, his voice calm but commanding attention. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asks, his eyes sweeping across the room. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." The words settle over the disciples like a gentle weight, a call to live differently, to love fiercely, to serve without reservation. Jesus is not just teaching a lesson, he's modeling a way of life that transforms both the giver and the receiver. Think of your own life, those moments when you feel drained, when your struggles seem to demand all your energy. It's easy to turn inward, to focus on your own needs, to seek validation or relief. But Jesus shows us another way. When we shift our focus to serving others, something remarkable happens. Our burdens don't disappear, but they become lighter. Our strength is renewed, not because our circumstances change, but because we've stepped into God's purpose. Serving others, as Jesus did, frees us from a need for external validation. It anchors us in a strength that comes from pleasing God alone. The upper room, with its flickering lamps and quiet intimacy, becomes a sacred space where this truth takes root. The disciples, still processing what they've witnessed, are changed by this act. They may not fully understand it now, but the seed is planted, one that will grow as they carry Jesus' message into the world. For us, this moment is a challenge. Who in your life needs your service? Maybe it's a small act, listening to a friend, helping a neighbor, forgiving someone who's hurt you. Or maybe it's something greater, a sacrifice that costs you time, pride, or comfort. Whatever the act, Jesus shows us that serving others is not a sign of weakness, but a reflection of divine strength. This secret of love through service is revolutionary because it defies the world's logic. The world tells us to prioritize ourselves, to climb higher, to seek recognition. But Jesus, kneeling with a towel and basin, shows us that true resilience comes from humility, from pouring out love even when we feel empty. The Apostle Paul later captures this truth in Philippians 2 verses 5-7, urging us to have the same mindset as Christ, who made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. When we serve, we step into the strength of Christ, a strength that sustains us through any trial. As Jesus speaks, the lamplight catches the resolve of his eyes. He knows the cross is near, that his ultimate act of service is yet to come. This moment in the upper room is a prelude to the greatest sacrifice, a reminder that his entire life was one of service. To his disciples, to the crowds, to us. For us, this secret is a lifeline. When life feels overwhelming, when we're tempted to retreat into self-preservation, Jesus invites us to serve. In that act, we find purpose, we find strength, we find the heart of God. The night deepens outside the upper room, the sounds of Jerusalem fading into the distance. Jesus sits among his disciples, the basin of water now still, the towel folded beside him. The lesson is complete, but its impact will echo through their lives and ours, a call to love through service, to find strength in humility. The wind howls across the Sea of Galilee, whipping the dark waters into furious waves that crash against the wooden hull of a small fishing boat. The sky is a churning mass of gray clouds, lightning flashing in the distance like jagged scars across the heavens. Rain pelts down in sheets, soaking everything in its path, while the boat pitches and rolls, threatening to capsize at any moment. The disciples, seasoned fishermen among them, grip the sides tightly, their faces pale with fear, shouts lost in the roar of the storm. Amid the chaos, Jesus lies asleep in the stern, his head resting on a cushion, seemingly oblivious to the turmoil around him. This is no ordinary squall. It's a tempest that tests the limits of human endurance, a moment where survival hangs by a thread. Here, on these raging waters, Jesus reveals a fourth secret to enduring and thriving: faith, even when it's small. The day had started peacefully enough. Jesus, after a long day of teaching crowds by the lakeside, suggests crossing to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. The disciples, eager to follow, climb into the boat, the gentle lapping of waves against the shore, a far cry from the violence to come. The sea, known for its sudden storms due to the surrounding hills channeling fierce winds, turns treacherous without warning. As the boat ventures farther from land, the wind picks up, the waves swelling until they tower over the vessel, crashing over the bow and filling it with water. The disciples bail frantically, their muscles aching, their hearts pounding with terror. They've seen storms before, but this one feels different, unrelenting, as if nature itself is conspiring against them. Picture the scene: the boat creaking under the strain, ropes straining against the mast, the disciples' cloaks plastered to their skin by the relentless rain. Panic sets in as they realize their efforts are futile. The storm is too powerful, the waves too high. In desperation, they turn to Jesus, shaking him awake. "Lord, save us." We're going to drown. They cry, their voices laced with fear and accusation. How could he sleep through this? Doesn't he care? Jesus stirs, his eyes opening calmly amid the frenzy. He looks at the raging sea, then at his frightened followers, and asks a question that cuts through the noise. You have little faith? Why are you so afraid? With those words, Jesus stands, his figure steady despite the boat's violent rocking. He rebukes the winds and the waves, his voice commanding yet serene. Quiet! Be still. In an instant, the storm obeys. The wind dies down to a whisper. The waves smooth out into a glassy calm. The rain ceasing as if it had never been. The sea, a moment ago a churning beast, now reflects the emerging stars like a mirror. The disciples stare in awe, their fear turning to wonder. What kind of man is this? They whisper among themselves. Even the winds and the waves obey him. This miracle is more than a display of power. It's a profound lesson in faith. Jesus shows us that faith, even as small as a mustard seed, can move mountains or calm seas. The disciples' fear stemmed from their focus on the storm rather than on the one who was with them. They had seen Jesus heal the sick, cast out demons, teach with authority. Yet in this moment, their faith faltered. Jesus' question, "Why are you so afraid? You have little faith?" isn't a rebuke, but an invitation to trust him more deeply, to remember who he is even when circumstances scream otherwise. The boat now drifts peacefully on the still waters, the air fresh with the scent of rain-washed earth. Jesus' calm in the storm contrasts sharply with the disciples' panic, highlighting that true faith brings peace that transcends understanding. He later teaches that if we have faith as small as a mustard seed, we can say to a mountain, "Move from here to there," and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for us. This isn't about the size of our faith, but about the object of it, God himself. Even a tiny faith placed in an all-powerful God can overcome the greatest chaos. Think of your own storms, those times when life feels like a raging sea, threatening to overwhelm you. Maybe it's a health crisis crashing like waves, a financial hardship filling your boat with worry, or relational turmoil pitching you side to side. In those moments, fear is natural. It was for the disciples too. But Jesus invites us to wake him, to cry out in faith, however small. His response isn't to scold our lack, but to demonstrate his power, to remind us that he is with us in the boat, that no storm is beyond his command. The Sea of Galilee, now serene under the night sky, becomes a classroom for this truth. The disciples, their clothes still damp, their hearts racing from the ordeal, learn that faith isn't the absence of fear, but the presence of trust. Jesus slept not out of indifference, but out of confidence in God's plan. He knew the storm couldn't thwart his purpose, just as our trials can't derail God's intentions for us if we trust him. The secret of faith, even when small, is empowering because it's accessible. We don't need mountain-moving faith to start. A mustard seed will do. Jesus shows us that act of trust, turning to him in the storm, brings peace and resolution. The Apostle Peter, one of those terrified disciples, later writes in 1 Peter 5, verse 7, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." This is the essence. Faith means handing over our fears, believing God cares and can act. As the boat approaches a far shore, the disciples reflect on the miracle, their small faith stretched and strengthened. For us, this story is a beacon. When storms hit, we can choose faith over fear, remembering Jesus' power and presence. Even if our faith feels fragile, placing it in him unleashes divine strength, calming our inner turmoil even if the external storm rages on. The stars twinkle above the calm Sea of Galilee, the boat gliding smoothly toward land. Jesus sits among his disciples, his presence a quiet assurance. The storm has passed, but the lesson endures, a call to faith that sustains through every tempest. The air is thick with the scent of sweat and blood, the sun obscured by a heavy veil of clouds over the hill called Golgotha. The ground is rough, strewn with rocks and dust, vibrating with the clamor of a restless crowd. Shouts of mockery rise like a bitter tide, mingle with the sobs of mourners and the clank of Roman armor. At the center of this chaos stands a wooden cross, its splintered beams stained dark with the agony of the man nailed to it. Jesus hangs there, his body racked with pain, each breath a struggle as the weight of his form pulls against the iron spikes. His face, bruised and bloodied, bears the marks of a crown of thorns pressed cruelly into his brow. Yet amid this suffering, his eyes hold a quiet strength, a compassion that defies the cruelty surrounding him. Here, On this hill of death, Jesus reveals the fifth secret to enduring and thriving: the freedom of forgiveness. The scene is harrowing, the atmosphere charged with hostility. Soldiers gamble for Jesus' clothes at the foot of the cross, their laughter sharp and callous. Religious leaders sneer, their voices dripping with disdain. He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Messiah. The crowd, caught up in the frenzy, hurls insults, their words like stones aimed at a broken man. Even one of the criminals crucified beside him joins in, mocking Jesus in his final hours. The weight of betrayal is palpable. Judas' kiss still lingers in memory. Peter's denial echoes in the distance, and the world itself seems to turn against the one who came to save it. Yet Jesus does not respond with anger or despair. Instead, his voice, though strained with pain, rises above the din, clear and deliberate. "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Picture him there, suspended between heaven and earth, his body trembling with the effort of each word. The nails driven through his hands and feet send waves of agony with every movement. Yet his prayer is not for relief, but for mercy. This is no ordinary forgiveness. It's a radical act, offered not to those who seek it, but to those who least deserve it. The soldiers, the mockers, the executioners. They act in ignorance, blind to divine love before them. Jesus' prayer cuts through their cruelty, a beacon of grace in a sea of hatred. It's a moment that redefines strength, showing that true power lies not in retaliation, but in releasing others from the debt of their wrongs. The cross, a symbol of suffering, becomes a stage for this profound lesson. Forgiveness, Jesus teaches, is not contingent on apology or even on understanding. It's a choice, a deliberate act of the heart that reflects God's boundless grace. The crowd continues its jeering, unaware that the man they mock is interceding for their souls. The sky grows darker, as the creation itself mourns, yet Jesus' prayer shines like a light, unbroken by the pain or the injustice. This act of forgiveness is not just for those at Golgotha. It's for all of us, for every moment we've fallen short, for every hurt we've caused or received. Think of your own life, those moments when anger or bitterness takes root, when someone's words or actions cut deep. Maybe it's a betrayal that still stings, a wound from years past that festers, or a daily frustration that festers in your heart. The world tells us to hold on to grudges, to demand justice, to protect ourselves from further pain. But Jesus, hanging on the cross, shows us another way. His prayer for his enemies reveals that forgiveness is not weakness, but liberation. It frees us from the chains of resentment, allowing us to live with a heart unburdened by hate. As he taught earlier in his ministry, we are to forgive not 7 times, but 77 times, a reminder that forgiveness has no limit, just as God's mercy toward us knows no bounds. The wind carries the scent of dust and blood across Golgotha, the crowd's voices rising and falling like waves. Jesus' prayer, though spoken in a moment, echoes through eternity. It's a lesson in resilience, showing that forgiveness doesn't depend on the offender's remorse, but on our choice to align with God's heart. Holding on to bitterness weakens us, draining our strength and clouding our peace. But forgiveness, as Jesus demonstrates, restores us. It's a gift we give ourselves, a release that allows us to move forward, to thrive despite the wounds we carry. This act on the cross is the culmination of Jesus' teachings on forgiveness. He lived it in his interactions, forgiving the woman caught in adultery, welcoming the tax collectors, loving those who rejected him. Now, in his final moments, he embodies it fully, praying for those who nail him to the wood. The Apostle Paul later writes in Colossians 3, verse 13, "Forgive as the Lord forgave you." This is a call to forgive as Jesus did, not because it's easy, but because it's transformative. It's a strength that frees us from the past, that heals our hearts, that aligns us with the God who forgave us first. As the hours pass, Jesus' body grows weaker, the pain intensifying with each labored breath. Yet his prayer remains, a testament to a love that endures beyond suffering. The soldiers continue their dice game, the crowd's taunts grow quieter, but the power of his words lingers. Forgiveness, Jesus shows us, is not just an act, but a way of life. It's a secret that empowers us to face life's cruelties with grace, to rise above pain with compassion, to find freedom in letting go. For us, this moment on the cross is a mirror. When we're hurt, when we're wronged, we can choose to cling to anger or to follow Jesus' example. Forgiveness doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it. turning wounds into opportunities for grace. It's a strength that allows us to thrive, not in spite of our trials, but through them. Jesus' prayer on the cross invites us to release our burdens, to trust God with justice, and to walk in the freedom that only forgiveness can bring. The clouds hang heavy over Golgotha, the cross standing stark against the darkened sky. Jesus, his voice now a whisper, clings to life, his heart still pouring out mercy. The world around him rages, but his forgiveness remains, a quiet victory that changes everything. The night is deep and still in the Garden of Gethsemane, the air cool and heavy with the scent of olive trees and damp earth. Moonlight filters through the twisted branches, casting dappled shadows on the ground where Jesus kneels. The distant murmur of Jerusalem's Passover crowds has faded, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. His disciples, weary from the evening's meal, lie scattered nearby, their breathing slow and heavy with sleep. But Jesus is wide awake, his heart weighed down by the knowledge of what lies ahead. The weight of the cross looms, not just as a physical burden, but as a divine mission that will demand everything. Here, in this quiet grove, Jesus reveals the sixth and final secret to enduring and thriving: total surrender to God's will. The garden feels like a sanctuary, yet tonight it's a crucible, a place where human will meet divine purpose. Jesus, fully God yet fully man, wrestles with the reality of his coming suffering. His steps are slow as he moves away from his disciples, finding a secluded spot among the ancient trees. The ground is soft beneath his knees, the earth cool against his hands as he falls prostrate in prayer. His voice, though steady, carries the weight of his anguish. "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." The words are raw, honest, a plea born of his human desire to avoid the pain of betrayal, humiliation, and death. Yet they are also a surrender, a deliberate choice to align his heart with God's perfect plan. Picture him there, his face pressed to ground, his robes gathering the dust of the garden. The silence is profound, broken only by the faint sound of his breathing, labored under the emotional strain. The cup he speaks of is no mere metaphor. It's the full weight of humanity's sin, the agony of separation from the Father, the torment of the cross. Every instinct in his human nature recoils from what's coming. Yet Jesus persists in prayer, not to escape but to embrace. He prays again and again, each time returning to the same refrain: "Not my will, but yours be done." This is not resignation. It's an active, courageous choice to trust that God's plan, though painful, is perfect. The olive trees stand as silent sentinels, their gnarled branches bearing witness to this sacred moment. An angel appears, sent by God to strengthen Jesus, a reminder that his prayers are heard, that his surrender is not in vain. His sweat, mingled with blood from the intensity of his anguish, falls to the ground like a silent offering. The medical term, hematidrosis, describes this rare phenomenon, where extreme stress causes blood vessels to burst, mixing sweat with blood. It's a vivid picture of the cause of surrender, yet also of its power. Jesus' prayer is not a one-time act, but a persistent turn to God, a choice to lay down his own desires for the sake of divine purpose. This moment in Gethsemane is a masterclass in surrender. Jesus shows us that true resilience comes not from fighting against our circumstances, but from embracing God's will, even when it leads through suffering. His prayer is a model for us all, a cry for relief, yes, but ultimately a submission to a greater plan. The world tells us to cling to control, to demand our own way, to avoid pain at all costs. But Jesus teaches that surrender is not weakness. It's the ultimate act of trust. It's saying, "I don't understand, but I trust you. I don't see the way, but I follow you." Think of your own moments of struggle, when life's plans unravel, when the path ahead feels daunting. Maybe it's a dream that's crumbled, a relationship that's broken, or a future that feels uncertain. In those moments, the temptation is to resist, to fight for control, to demand answers. But Jesus' example in Gethsemane calls us to something higher. He shows us that surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's trusting that God's ways are higher, as Isaiah 55 verse 9 declares, and that his plans are for our good, as Romans 8 verse 28 promises. In all things God works for the good of those who love him. This trust brings a peace that anchors us, a strength that sustains us through any trial. The garden remains still, but the air feels charged with the weight of Jesus' decision. His disciples sleep on, unaware of the soldiers who will soon arrive, their torches flickering in the distance. Jesus rises from his prayer, his face calm, his spirit resolved. He knows the cross awaits, yet he faces it with a strength-born surrender. "Rise! Let us go," he tells his disciples, his voice steady despite the betrayal drawing near. This is the fruit of his prayer, a courage that embraces God's will, a peace that transcends fear, a resilience that carries him to the cross and beyond. For us, Gethsemane is a mirror. When life feels overwhelming, when our plans fall apart, Jesus invites us to pray as he did, to pour out our fears, to lay down our will, and to trust God's purpose. Surrender doesn't mean our pain disappears, but it means we face it with a strength that comes from God alone. It's a choice to rest in the assurance that God is in control, that his plan is unfolding, even when we can't see it. This is the essence of true resilience, a surrender that empowers us to endure, to thrive, to walk forward in faith. The moonlight fades as clouds gather over Gethsemane, the olive trees standing as quiet witnesses. Jesus moves toward his destiny, his heart fully surrendered, his spirit unshaken. The cross looms, but so does the promise of redemption, a testament to the power of giving all to God. If Jesus' story has moved you or made you think, please share it. It could be just what someone else needs to hear. Jesus' life shows us that change is possible for everyone. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next videos, where we'll explore the stories of other biblical characters and the valuable lessons they teach us. Just as God transformed Jesus' life, he also has a plan for you. See you in the next video.